Hey, how's it going, YouTube? How y'all doing today? I did get everything plowed up yesterday. Oh, I did. Trying not to trip over here on all this, but I got everything plowed up yesterday. Got everything plowed up. I have yet to run a disc over anything. I got everything plowed up by about 10 p.m. yesterday. Well, okay, so what was happening was I got started on it early. Got started on it as early as possible, sometime in the afternoon, and I was going. Then as I was going, my engine started misfiring, and then the engine died on me. The engine started misfiring for about 5 minutes, and then it just started going, and then the engine died on me. And so I sat there for about 10 minutes and I thought about what could be wrong. And I was like, oh, I probably ran out of diesel. So I went over there. I went to just a gas station. I picked up some diesel, came back, put the diesel in there, ran it for about 10 seconds, then same thing. And before the engine died on me, it was misfiring. So I figured there was something going on with the fuel injector, or something connected to the fuel, the fuel supply, the injector, or something connected to the fuel supply lines. And so I pulled the primary fuel filter off of the tractor. I made sure the fuel line was open. I pulled the primary fuel filter off the tractor. Okay, so actually what I did was I got on the fuel injector. I figured something was wrong with the fuel injector, so I got on. I took a look at the fuel injector. I manually was sitting there trying to prime the thing for about half an hour. And I was getting zero diesel out of the fuel injector. I was sitting there trying to prime it for about half an hour. I got zero diesel out of it. So I figured either the vacuum on the pump broke somewhere, a seal broke or something like that. The pump lost its vacuum, or there was something wrong with the diesel supply line. And so I started pulling the fuel supply lines apart, starting from the diesel tank. I did this with my father yesterday, and so we started pulling the fuel supply line apart from the diesel tank. And when we got to the diesel tank, there was a piece of sludge about the size of my the tip of my pinky finger up in the diesel tank. A piece of sludge from it. Okay, so what happened was that we pulled the fuel supply line off of the diesel tank, and we still got zero diesel coming out of the tank. There was zero diesel running out of the tank. And so we took a closer look at at just everything, the close valves and everything, the ball valve and everything up in there, that shuts the fuel line off. If I want to manually shut it off, I can. And we pulled that adapter off the diesel tank, and inside of that the close valve, there was a piece of sludge in there about the size of the tip of my pinky finger, probably about this big right here, and I was stuck up in there. And so yep, that took about probably the better part of okay, well, so I should have finished everything by about 7 o'clock yesterday, but I ended up finishing up at 10. So I guess yep, it's about as good as it goes, right? So far so good. That's the long story short. I did get the ground plowed up. I haven't gotten it disked yet, and I do see a few spots where I'm like I missed plowing it. The field is kind of in a regular shape, so I kind of have to kind of zigzag around to get everywhere. And so there are a few spots that I missed that I gotta hit. I gotta turn the soil over. But so far so good. It was supposed to rain this morning, but we got zero rain. It's gonna rain. It's gonna rain hard. It says 90% chance of potentially severe thunderstorms tomorrow morning, early at about 4 in the morning until about noon. And so I'm just gonna say 90% chance there's a good chance it's gonna rain tomorrow morning. and it may rain pretty hard. And so, yep. Any spots that I missed yesterday. Oh my gosh! Hey, leave them alone. Just ran into each other. But any spot that I missed yesterday, I'll be plowing that up today. I'm gonna disc it a little later on. I'm gonna see if the rain. So the rain, the best way for me to describe what the rain will do to the soil is that, let's say I have a big old piece of soil like this, right? If I have a big old piece of soil and it gets a whole bunch of rain on it, that soil will break up into smaller pieces and it'll flatten back into the ground. The soil, once it gets plowed, it doesn't just stay like that forever. The soil will eventually turn back into soil like this. And so the easiest way for me to kind of describe what's going on is that, like, if I have a soil that's a big old ball, let's just say the soil is a big old ball. That big old ball will, as the rain gets into it and breaks it apart, it'll turn into a lot of different balls, like small, medium, large, extra small, extra large. It'll turn into all different sizes of balls. And then as that water breaks that soil apart, those small balls will squeeze in between the bigger balls, and the soil will move like that. The soil will actually physically move as the rain hits it. And over a long period of time, or even over the course of just a couple months, the soil will come back together like this. The soil will just be a piece of soil again. And so I'm going to see what the rain does first. If the rain can push the soil back together, most of the soil back together for me, that's fantastic. That'll mean that I just have to do that there's less for me to do. But I'm gonna see how much the rain puts the soil back together for me, and then because it's still too early to plant Sudangrass. It's still too early, and so even if I got the soil tip-top ready right now, I'd just be looking at a pretty field, right? And so why go through all that effort? I'm just gonna let the rain push the soil back together. I'm gonna see how much the rain puts the soil back together, and then I'm gonna do the last piece of the work. So I'm gonna, if I do need to run a disc over it, I'll run a disc over it to flatten it, and then I'll run the cultipacker over it before I drill the seed into it. But I'm gonna let the rain do its thing first. I'm gonna see what happens, and then I'm going to finish it up, because I'm still too early. It's gonna start raining about tomorrow morning, and then when it starts raining, it's gonna rain hard next week. It's going to rain several days next week, like 5 days in a row. It's saying 60% chance. And so the spring showers are coming in. I'm going to get some fertilizer on this grass. I'm gonna get a little bit more fertilizer on this grass again. I got to fertilize this grass about once a week to keep these cattle eating grass. I mean, these cattle, I mean, they look good. I mean, they look right about where they should be. I'm going to be getting them on silage as soon as possible. But they look good for being on grass. I mean, they look good. These animals, they're about right where they should be. I would say that a majority of these animals are, except for the real small ones. Like this guy, he's probably he's probably been here about 6 months. He's probably about 6-7 months old. That's what I meant to say. And so like an animal like this, I would say an animal like this, this is probably an 8-month-old animal or so, about 8 months old, 9 months old. And so yep, animals are on grass. I'm gonna get some more fertilizer on this grass later today, before while I still have an opportunity to do so, because once these spring showers start, it may rain several days in a row, and if it starts raining several days in a row, I won't be able to drive a tractor back here to fertilize anything. And these cattle are relying heavily on this grass to get their nutrition. And so like the grain that I give them in the morning and in the evening is barely anything, and I'm only giving them that because of the front yard is being plowed up right now. The front field is being plowed up right now. And so I need to keep this grass growing for them. That means I got a bit of ammonium sulfate. I'm gonna put some ammonium sulfate on this. Oh, excuse me. Well, I have a little bit of ammonium sulfate, but I'm gonna put I am gonna put a little bit of just a broad spectrum fertilizer up on this soil. So a 17, 17, 17, 5. And I know that that phosphorus and potassium, it won't really move into the soil. But okay, so here's the thing about my soil, about this soil here. This soil, when it gets a lot of water on it, it turns into like this goopy mess. It turns into like real thick soup. Some people call this soil black gumbo, because this soil, when it gets real wet, stuff will just start sinking into it. Literally will start sinking into it. And so what's gonna happen is that when I'm so this soil, if I put a triple 17 on this field okay, so the rain tomorrow morning is supposed to rain over the course of about 6-7 hours. So it's supposed to be a pretty steady rainfall for about 6-7 hours. And the idea is that the fertilizer will get that rain, and within it'll sink into the soil, because it's going to be a pretty severe, it's going to be a pretty major rain event. And it's going to be a steady rain for a few hours. It ain't just going to be like it dumps rain and then it goes away. It's going to be like the rain happens for several hours. And so this soil will have a long time to absorb anything that's sitting on the top of it. Whatever's sitting on the top of it will just sink into the soil. And so I'm going to put the triple 17 on this soil with a little bit of sulfur, and with the intention of the soil getting wet to a point. I believe that the soil will hit a point this time where it's wet enough to where stuff starts sinking into it. It does need to be a pretty severe major rain event for that to happen, but I believe that today, tomorrow will be that rain event, that stuff will start sinking into the soil. Like this soil, even when there's grass on it, if it gets enough rain on it, it'll get to a point where my feet will start going. When I start walking on the soil, my feet will sink into the soil. And that has yet to really happen. It's happened maybe a couple months ago, but I believe that is what will happen by tomorrow morning, by tomorrow evening. That is what is going to happen. And so I'm going to put that triple 17 on this soil, that phosphorus potassium fertilizer on this soil, with the intention of it sinking into the soil as that major rain event occurs. And so yep, there are many different ways to put that phosphorus, that potassium into the soil. This soil, like and that isn't something that's true for all soils. Like if I was on a sandy soil or something like that, it would be a different story. But this soil in particular has that characteristic about it, is that when it gets wet to a certain point, stuff will just start sinking into it, and that's why some people call it black gumbo. But it's black clay. It's commonly known as black clay around around here they call it black clay. But just another word for it is black gumbo soil. And so I'm gonna be putting fertilizer on this soil again, so that these cattle get this grass growing back in. And the reason that I put fertilizer on here so frequently is because if I put too much fertilizer on here at once, the cattle will start bloating real bad, because the grass starts growing in real hot. The grass will grow in real fast, and it'll grow in real hot, and the cattle will start bloating on it real bad. That's what I began to realize. And so I'm putting so that puts me in a situation now where I have to put less fertilizer on the soil per application, and I have to put it on here more frequently to have this grass grow in properly. Because if I just go through here and I say, oh, instead of fertilizing once a week at 10 pounds of nitrogen per acre, I'm just going to fertilize once every 2 weeks at 20 pounds of nitrogen per acre, that 20 pounds of nitrogen per acre will make this grass grow way too fast, and these cattle will start bloating. They'll start getting sick on it. And so I'm kind of in when grazing cattle like this, I'm realizing that it, you know, it may be a little bit tedious, but it's the proper way to do it. It's just how it needs to be done, or there could be a major accident. And that's with the annual ryegrass. I don't know about like other grasses like fescues. I'm sure that there are lower protein grasses out there, but this ryegrass responds very well to nitrogen fertilizer. If I put nitrogen fertilizer on this field, this ryegrass will just start growing. Boom! It'll grow. It'll start growing immediately. Like the results are practically instantaneous. The moment I put the nitrogen fertilizer on this ryegrass, it'll just grow, and then the cattle will just eat it, because it's a very palatable grass. It's very digestible. The cattle love eating it, and so if the grass grows like that, the cattle will eat a lot of it, and then they'll get very sick. And with the weather warming up, I can't have these cattle bloating on this pasture, because if they got pasture bloat and it's hot outside, they could die. Bloat is a major problem when it gets hot outside, because these cattle are much more likely susceptible to dying on bloat in the heat than they are in cool weather. And so that's also one of the big reasons why I'm going to be that silage out front, I'm going to be harvesting it at a later date, at a higher maturity, so that the protein content of it drops. The protein content of it will drop, the digestibility of it will drop, but the dry matter volume that I'll be harvesting will be significantly higher. And the reason that I'm doing that is because if I give these animals an extremely digestible grass that's high in protein, when it's hot outside, they'll blow up like gas bubbles. They'll blow up like a little bubble, and then they'll die. And so, yeah, but I mean, it's very tedious, and you know, to have to drive over this field once a week to put fertilizer on it to keep these cattle fed. But I mean, it's worth it. I mean, you know, it's a good investment. In all honesty, you know, putting fertilizer on this field, it takes but 2-3 hours a week to do that, to do all that with a fertilizer hopper. And so it's just one of those things that I have to do, because if I don't do it, it turns into a big problem. And if it turns into a big problem, yeah, that's you know, can't have big problems constantly. And so, yep, but pretty soon here, this field is going to be plowed up. It's going to be plowed up like that front field, and then I'm going to drill a pearl millet into here. I'm going to flatten this field, and then I'm going to drill pearl millet in here all the way through. And then once I get that silage out front for these animals, once I get that silage, or if I can even cut dry hay. So so cattle behavior, just from what I've seen, is that if these cattle get a bale of hay put in front of them, they will sit by that bale of hay their whole day, every day, until that hay is gone. And so the reason that that's so like a valuable piece of information is because if there's a grass that's real hot and I'm trying to keep the cattle off of it, just give them a bale of good hay. Put them on a bale of good hay, and they won't even bother eating the grass most of the time. If the cattle know what the hay is, they'll just sit there by the hay all day until the hay is gone. And so that's what I plan to be doing with this field when the pearl millet is. When I drill this field with the pearl millet, to keep the cattle off of the pearl millet from grazing it too early, I'm just going to keep dropping bales of hay in front of them. And that hay that I'll be growing outside is going to be good hay. It's going to be good hay. Yep, it's going to be exactly what these cattle need. Because if I have, because that pearl millet, it'll start growing when the weather gets warm outside. When it starts getting hot outside, when it gets hot out here in Texas, it gets hot. Like it gets over 100 degrees. And so I can't have cattle eating 20% protein grass when it's 100 degrees outside, because they'll die. And so, yep, I need to, I'm gonna put them, I'm gonna grow that silage out front. Even if it's not silage, even if it's dry hay, I'll get it to them when it's fresh. And so they're really gonna like it. They're really gonna like it. But yep, just drop a bale of hay in front of the animals, and they'll stop going for the grass. Once they realize what the hay is, they'll just sit there eating the hay. But the hay's got to be a good quality hay. If the hay's like some nasty junk hay, they'll just kind of pick through it and then they'll leave it alone. So it's got to be real good hay. And when they realize what that hay bale is, they'll just sit there all day. They'll sit there all day, every day, until that hay is gone. And so that's the plan. I'm gonna get some hay bales. I'm gonna grow my own hay bales here. And then when the hay bales are when this field needs to get drilled, I'm gonna start dropping the hay in front of them out front, so that they stay off the grass until the grass is growing in a decent bit. And then yep, I'll let them at it. But yeah, I think that's it for me today, YouTube. Y'all have a good one.